You know, it's funny when I imagined in the book, I imagined like he was cut in half.
Oh, vertically.
Mm-hmm. But nope, that's not the case here.
I mean, if I had to pick a way, I think I'd go horizontal personally, because you might survive.
You would rather be cut horizontally?
You might survive it. You go vertical, you're done. Although I guess it's fast, at least.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess it depends on what you're hoping for here.
Where's your midpoint?
If I survive it, I'll go horizontal. Yeah. Welcome, friends, to episode 180 of the Ink to Film podcast, where we read the book and then see the movie. I'm James.
And I'm Luke.
And this week we discuss Eric Heisserer's 2021 series, Shadow and Bone. Okay, Luke, I'm delighted to say that I am enjoying this show.
Oh, good.
You know, it's always a tense time after we've read an adaptation and we're coming up to an eventual film version. I'm always like, is it going to live up? Is it going to be able to elevate in some way? Because we really never know. But in this case, I'm honestly really surprised and in that way happy. Like, this is what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly good. I'm having a good time with it. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of stuff that I assume is brought in from other books.
You have to assume, yeah.
Yeah, I have to assume, but I don't know. Like, is it just characters from other books that they're reimagining? I have heard there are big plot changes. I know there are some big plot changes just from what we've seen. So far, I'm enjoying that stuff, and in fact, a lot of the new stuff is like some of my favorite.
Yeah, it's felt fresh in ways because I did kind of have to go in with the assumption that like, oh, this must be book 2 or this must be some other stuff that's going on. And like you said, I don't know if it's because we didn't read it and it's fresh in addition to the stuff that we're seeing adapted, but it was nice to have the blend of both. To be able to jump between multiple groups of people was honestly a welcome change in my book so far.
Yeah, I mean, because the book itself, which we covered last week, is a single POV throughout. It's Alina. And so we basically only get the Alina plotline. And that's like maybe a third, maybe half. I don't know. Probably about like a third of the show is that. And we're getting a lot of other stuff too, which is really cool. And definitely kind of rounds out the experience in a way that I'm enjoying. And I think is necessary if you're going to bring it to, an 8-part season of television. You're gonna have to explore other characters.
Yeah, and it feels like it's prestige Netflix, right? It's they put the budget in. You can tell it looks great. It's stylized. There's great set decoration. There's great costuming going on. It kind of really brought the world to life in a way that I was hoping for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything looks great. World design, costume design. You know, the look of all these characters is good. It does have, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, but it has a little bit of like, I want to say like a CW vibe, but on a budget that CW never had.
I agree, yeah.
It feels like they pumped a lot of money into it, but it has that like teen fantasy drama feel to it still, where it doesn't quite feel like it's really trying to be Game of Thrones, which I know a lot of people make that comparison just because it's big fantasy show, but it doesn't feel like that's what it's trying to be.
I feel like, I think they want people to walk away saying it feels a little bit like Game of Thrones in the way there's like political machinations going on and some of that kind of stuff here and there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I necessarily think that it's a great comparison. I just think that like that's what the intention was.
I kind of don't think it is. I honestly think it's just that it's fantasy, and people are like, well, what's another big fantasy show that was popular? Okay, it's that. I kind of don't like that comparison because I really don't think the show is really comparable to Game of Thrones in a lot of ways. It's not really trying to be, other than the fact that it is a secondary world and it's got kind of an ensemble going on. But like the whole vibe is different. The all of our leads would feel very out of place in a Game of Thrones show. Like the tone, the themes, way different than Game of Thrones. So there's just like so much that is different. I guess there's some politics, but not that much. I don't know.
Yeah. I would say if I was to say what I thought the intention was, is I think it was one of many different things that they were trying to sort of turn into an amalgamation. Of course, they were going to be influenced by a fantasy show like Game of Thrones in a post Game of Thrones world. So like, obviously they're trying in some way, there's reaching for Game of Thrones, mixing it with maybe like, because it's a Netflix show, trying to pull in some Stranger Things and like, it's clearly not Game of Thrones because it's not that adult. It's kind of down a tier from that kind of thing.
It is kind of YA, and I guess that's because CW was known for that age range, so maybe that's where I'm kind of feeling that for. And it really, in kind of a depressing way, has shown me that I'm getting a little older now, because I was noticing just how young all of the leads are.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody's so young in this show.
Mm-hmm. You know what's interesting to me too is I feel like they aged up the show from what we got in the book.
Maybe a little, just the first book. Yeah, although it's ambiguous though, because like, a lot of characters, like Alina doesn't know how old she is. I think that's specifically said, even though we assume teenage, and I think the show is kind of in that realm. Seems like so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it just felt aged up a little bit. I think seeing some of these, like, there are some pretty gruesome deaths that we see, some violence that we see, that I think, and there's a guy being cut in half in the book.
Well, that's the thing. Like, YA can have that stuff, and there is not a lot of like hard and fast content rules for this kind of thing. So that didn't surprise me to see, and I was kind of glad. And yeah, some of the battle sequences are really good, really well done. I've been impressed overall with how they implemented the use of the magic, which we can get into like specific examples of that.
What'd you think of the Fold?
The Fold, it looks good. I really liked the journey on the sand skiff, which we'll get into the specifics in episode 1 here, but in a spoiler-free way, yes, I think it is adapted well. I do think they were going for big. The wall from Game of Thrones. I think they were going for those vibes when they're like standing in front of this giant wall of darkness.
Yeah. I kept getting, just to make the Game of Thrones comparison early, anytime they were in the snow, I was definitely getting a in the North Game of Thrones kind of feel, where there's snow on the ground. They have like a very blue tint to the like look in the image, versus like anytime they're in like the sand areas, like we're talking about like Actual and Ravka, it's like more orange tinted. But yeah, so I would love to hear sort of like what your viewing was like. Did you like 3 or 4 episodes? Did you watch them all in a row? Like, how was the pacing for you so far?
I broke them up. I think I watched like 1 per day the last 4 days. That's kind of how I like to watch TV. I tend to every now and then I'll watch 2 back to back, but I tend to like to space things out. So my binges aren't like true binges in that way. Because I do like to like marinate on an episode sometimes afterwards. If I go right into the second, I don't give myself enough time to really kind of think about what happened and digest it. Yeah,
I prefer like episodic in like a weekly format, just because, like you said, it really gives you that whole week to think about it and view it, and if you wanted to watch it again. But you're stronger than me, because a lot of time if I'm like really into a show and I'm not going to be able to. I can't outweigh how much I want to keep watching versus like how much I would love to stew on this. I'm like, oh, let's just go into the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it drives my wife crazy. She hates it. She's like, no, we're gonna watch the next one, and I'm like, no. Yeah, I wanna like sit with this one for a night.
Depending on how heavy the content is also another thing. For this, for me, it was like a bit lighter, so I was able to binge through it pretty quick.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is one where I would probably have binged a little faster if it wasn't for the show, because I like, for the show's sake, to like think about an episode for a bit. Yeah. So I gave myself that opportunity, and I mean. It was fun. I think it took a few episodes before it had really sunk its hooks in me. There was definitely things to like early, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think it was really, episode 3 where we were getting a lot of new stuff. That I really felt like, okay, I'm into this show now. I definitely want to finish this out. I'm excited to see where they go with it. Yeah, I'm having fun with it. I guess I'll bring it up now. I didn't know if we wanted to wait until we got into specifics, but one of the overarching things through all 4 episodes that gets touched on, that I know I've seen a lot of stuff online, so I'm not trying to just parrot it here, but I definitely noticed it, is they introduced this whole racism plot line for Alina. She's half Shu. It basically becomes like anti-Asian racism is like in all of the episodes I've seen so far. I don't know where they're going with this. I kind of want to give the benefit of the doubt and hope that it's leading somewhere interesting or somewhere with a good message behind it. But I just know that a lot of people are like, it's really tough to go to a fantasy world and hope for an escape and then find that they've added anti-Asian racism into the plot line. And a lot of people in America right now, that's such a huge topic as we're seeing hate crimes, all over the country, just proliferating against Asian people. And it is troubling to see it here. And, I don't know. It doesn't feel like they're handling it necessarily in the best ways. It's kind of just like there to make Alina have like a struggle and have like a, her against the world and nobody understands her and she's an outcast in every way. And it's also about her like identity. She's struggling to find an identity. And so she's like, she's half Shu, but I don't know, man. It's playing with fire. And I think they're getting burned a little bit because I don't know that it's necessarily handled super well.
Yeah, when we talked about in the book how looks sort of were a major motivator or something that was like really important to the characters and like their state of mind. I did, I don't think it's a spoiler to say there is a few times where she shows that she's proud of her Shu heritage, which I think that's a positive. I also, who am I to say? I'm not of Asian descent. So
right.
If it's, if someone's reacting that way, I can totally agree. And like, to add something like that, that wasn't in it is, like you said, it is a tough tightrope to walk.
Well, and I think a lot, and some of the stuff I've seen on Twitter, people who are either, of Asian descent or, half Asian or whatever, and reacting to this and going, oh, I was so excited to see that they solved a lot of they quote unquote solved a lot of the diversity problems by making a diverse cast, but then boom, racism. You could just have a diverse cast in a fantasy world and not have to do this. I don't know. And like, maybe there is some message that they're trying to get across. There's some story arc that's going to attempt to redeem it. I just can't see it in this show being interesting enough, thoughtful enough, powerful enough to sort of justify this when the show itself is it's more fun than that. Like it's a very heavy topic, and the rest of the show feels more fun to me. So it kind of seems out of place.
Yeah, I can see that.
Didn't ruin the show for me, but like I can't blame anybody if it's just a thing they have to nope out on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, while we're on the subject of cast, do you want to talk about any standouts or anybody who sort of didn't live up to character expectations for you?
So we got a lot of people who weren't in the book we read. So let's focus first on the ones that we are familiar with. Jessie Mei Li, she is, I think, very good as Alina. I'm curious to see what she does later on, where I think the character gets more conflicted. I think we're just starting to get there in episode 4. But I think overall she's been good. Most of our leads have been good. Ben Barnes, I think, has been okay. He hasn't really had a lot to do yet. He does this thing pretty frequently where he has kind of a flat affectation. And I think he's trying to be very mysterious. Like he's looking at her in a mysterious way. But instead it just falls flat. It feels like where I'm not really getting anything from the performance.
Okay, yeah.
And that just might be me nitpicking a little bit, but and because of that, I'm struggling to feel the chemistry between him and Alina, at least in these episodes. Like, whereas I thought in the book, like there was like an immediate magnetism between the two of them. I don't know if it's happening yet on screen.
Yeah, I know that like there was probably an intention to say like we want the viewer to feel uneasy here, but I wasn't getting like an attraction. It felt way more creepy.
Yeah. And
maybe it's supposed to kind of feel like that, but I just don't know if I buy that Alina would be into it or like consensual with like how weird. I don't. It just seems like all weird so far. But
we should also say like there's been some changes to that character, the Darkling. I think it's like General Kerrigan now, and the Darkling are like kind of one and the same. Like they I think they blended two characters together.
Oh, really? I just assumed that they just gave him a general name.
No, I think there was a General Kerrigan in the book, is the thing. And I think they essentially blended him in this general character.
Interesting.
I don't even know. Yeah, they're doing something interesting with the character. I assume there will still be some of the same stuff going on, but we'll see. We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Jessie Mei Li is doing really well in my opinion. Like she's sort of the core of the show for me. On her in her storyline, her path so far, she's the best part of her section of the story. Mal actually, Archie. At first, I had a difficult time buying in. He was like the first episode. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is good. It felt you made the CW reference. Like it felt very CW to me, like right away. I think I got over it, and then in a couple episodes in, I was bought in, and I actually thought that he was doing a good job.
I think episode 4, which we'll talk about, was his best moment. He does some of his most interesting stuff. Some of his best performance. So yeah, I think maybe a little bit uneven is what I would say about his performance, but there's definitely some greatness there, or some stuff that I'm really enjoying at least. Do we want to talk about the other group yet? Or
I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a character called Kaz Brekker, who I'm pretty sure is a character from either book 2 or the second duology. I'm not sure which. I mean, people can let us know.
I did see the Six of Crows or whatever was the other book that was being pulled from.
Which I think is the duology.
Okay.
Maybe. So this character, I had seen elsewhere that Leigh Bardugo wrote a character who had a limp, because she sometimes has a limp, and how in many ways she felt like very close to this character. And so when I saw this Kaz Brekker character show up with the cane, I thought, okay, and as someone who myself has a limp and occasionally uses a cane, not often, but I have it in the past more. I don't know. I really liked seeing that like a disabled character in a lead role here, essentially. And it's not, it's not an affectation. It's not just so he can have a sword in his cane. Like he just has a cane. Like, yeah, maybe it looks cool and everything, and he's styling with it, but like it's just a cane that he uses to help him walk, I think that's really cool. And his crew is just, my favorite part of the show. Like I absolutely love it. Jesper is this like he literally, his name evokes Jester to me, and he has this like really fun, like kind of wild man attitude. He's a sharpshooter, really interesting. And then Inej is maybe my favorite character in the whole show.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say she's
a freaking ninja. She's so cool.
She's Batmaning away from people. She's Batmaning disappears on people.
Yeah. She's like scary. Like she's got like mad skills. Like I mean, I'm really into her. Great character.
And I'm also really invested in her story. You know, like she's probably one of the most interesting backstories that I'm interested in exploring more.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So that whole crew, and then the conductor, which we'll get to later, like that whole crew has just been the highlight of the show for me. And maybe it's kind of cheating because it's like, I don't know what's going to happen there because this was not in the book we read.
Is it because it's fresh? We're not sure.
I do think that this is a plot line I would really enjoy read about too. It actually makes me want to go read that book because the other thing about them is they are freaking stylish. Like they're talking about like the costuming, like. It kind of has like Peaky Blinders vibes, but in a fantasy world. They got their hats all askew, and they're wearing these cool outfits, and they're rolling through these like alleyways together, like a little crime syndicate. I don't know, syndicate, whatever.
I can't tell if there's like a power system because they feel like they almost have powers, and I can't tell if that fits within the universe.
I don't know that any of them have magic. They just are like incredible, but maybe something's magical going on. We don't know because they're so good. Like Jesper is such a good shot that it feels magical. Yeah.
I did read that the actor Kit Young like trained to actually perform some of these trick shots. Like, I don't know how far he was able to go and how much he was able to do.
Spinning those guns really well.
Yeah, exactly. He looked like he really like was comfortable with them. I did, but yeah. So I read that like he apparently could do some of them, some of the tricks practically. I don't know what that looks like within this show. Like I don't know what comes through that's actually practical, if there is anything. But it's cool commitment to the role.
Yeah.
With it being so as new as it is, there isn't a ton of behind the scenes stuff. I also read that Freddy Carter learned to do like sleight of hand tricks for Kaz Brekker, and like you can see some of that with like. Eventually I don't want to spoil anything, but you can see some of that, and it's cool to know that like they're getting attached to these characters in that way. But anything else that I have that's behind the scenes, I'll try to thread in as we move along here. I want to talk about the filmmaker at this point. Okay. So, in this case, the showrunner, Eric Heisserer. is an American screenwriter and comic book writer. Now, I'm just going to talk about this at the front because...
We've covered him before.
We've covered him before, yeah.
Yeah,
so I didn't know if
I recognize that name. Yeah.
On our movie coverage of Arrival, we talked about him a little bit because of the adaptation process of Ted Chiang's Story of Your Life.
Yep.
And because I think Ted Chiang was involved in that process a little bit as well, but he actually was the person adapting.
I had spoken to Ted Chiang at a reading event he did. And one of the things I asked him about was that, and was about the Arrival adaptation and how he was happy with it. And he told a story, I think at the event, where he was talking about Eric reached out to him and had this really strong idea for what he wanted to do with it. And so he mostly worked with Eric, I think, not Denis Villeneuve. He that was his main point of contact, was influencing the screenplay, I guess. And working with him on the screenplay. And once he had the screenplay crafted, they felt really good about it, and Eric Heisserer was the one who was able to get Denis Villeneuve on board.
Yeah. Which we love that project. We've talked about it a ton. Incredible. I just wanted to bring it up because we have talked about Heisserer before, and at that point he was writing screenplays and eventually would go on to direct, and then now he's show running for this. He actually got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay for Arrival as well for the screenplay.
I don't know if you saw this, but there was some news, I think just dropped today, where Eric Heisserer is going to be adapting the tabletop RPG World of Darkness, which cool. I think includes Vampire the Masquerade, which I don't know if you're familiar with that as an RPG.
I think you've talked to me about that before, actually.
Yeah, I've only played it once, but it's a game a lot of people like, and it's very goth. I think it's big in goth culture, and cool game. And it's interesting that he's adapting this tabletop RPG setting into a movie. Not sure about that. He's adapting it in some way, but I mean, this guy's doing these adaptations, and I mean, everything he's done so far has been cool that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, we might end up covering him again in the future because of that. But I want to tell you, with what you just told me about the sort of goth RPG, I wanted to get into his beginnings, because I think this is going to hit us. We grew up at a time where this is going to have been something that was very interesting way to break into the industry. So Heisserer's professional screenwriting career was launched with the sale of the Dionea House to Warner Brothers in 2005, based on an online epistolary story of the same name that he wrote from autumn 2004 to winter 2006. The Dionea House was a multimedia novel told across multiple blogs, run by fictional characters, and concerned an ominous house that existed in multiple places across the United States. It is considered to be one of the first popular creepypasta stories.
That's really cool. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's so cool. That's awesome.
So what a way for him to break in. And creepypastas were massive because early internet and the way that they were being sent around, and there was a lot of is this a true story? People love to talk about that kind of stuff and try to play it up as true. So in December 2008, Heisserer was hired to re-envision and rewrite the script for the franchise reboot of A Nightmare on Elm Street. He wrote the prequel to John Carpenter's 1982 remake, The Thing. So he's, tons of horror projects coming his way right after that creepypasta.
So that 2011 film, he wrote that?
Yeah, he rewrote the prequel, yeah.
Interesting, because we that was one we covered in a bonus episode. I did not remember his name coming up, but maybe we just, because we don't dive quite as deep sometimes into the production.
On the bonus episodes, yeah, but I just looked it up to confirm. Yeah, he wrote the screenplay for the 2011 thing as well.
That's cool.
So, you think about what A Nightmare on Elm Street means, and The Thing to horror legacy, and these are being handed coming his way as he's getting to write the screenplays.
So he's I didn't know he had this horror connection. You got this creepypasta, you got these old horror films, and then he's doing Shadow and Bone fantasy. He's doing Arrival sci-fi. He's a genre guy. I'm liking this.
Big time, yeah. So in April 2010, Heisserer signed on to write Final Destination 5, the fifth film of the horror film franchise.
Okay. I don't remember. I don't think I've seen that one. I think I fell off of that franchise after 2, maybe.
Yeah. So Heisserer made his directorial debut with the film Hours, starring Paul Walker. He also co-wrote The Conjuring 2. So,
okay. I have not seen any Conjuring films. I've heard good things, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, they're pretty good for a fun little horror watch. Yeah. Heisserer wrote the screenplay for the 2016 film Arrival as well.
Yeah, which is so fantastic. That is a crown jewel right there.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's such a great sci-fi film, and so atmospheric and so unique. It's just a fun, unique sci-fi story.
Yeah. And how much of that is his screenplay? How much of that is Ted Chiang's story? And how much of that is Denis Villeneuve directing. It's all comes together. But I will say, in his defense, like Ted Chiang's story is a really difficult story to adapt to film. Like
definitely,
and a lot of that adaptation process has to be in the screenplay. So well done.
For sure. And like he's attached to some things here and like being trusted with some large franchises and getting to continue, he's continuing to work, and then has come to 2017. It was announced that he was developing a sci-fi fiction series based on another Ted Chiang story, Liking What You See, a documentary for AMC.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't know that it's out yet. I think that COVID may have messed with it a little bit or something like that. But it says the series will explore concepts such as beauty, relationships, and advertising.
Wow. We'll have to look more into that. I would love to cover some more Ted Chiang.
Yeah, definitely. Heisserer also wrote the script for Bird Box in 2011, smash Netflix movie that everybody was talking about at the time.
I have not seen that yet. That's on our list of potential projects, so I've been holding off because I've been wanting to because it's an adaptation. So again, he's doing great work with these adaptations.
I have seen it. We'll talk about it on an episode, I'm sure, one day. But it was, it was massive at the time. Yep. It was one of those Netflix movies that dropped that was captivating everybody. It was like #1 on Netflix easily. Mm-hmm. And that was as 2018, so not very long ago.
And then now he's doing Shadow and Bone.
Now he's doing Shadow and Bone.
Which is his first TV show, I guess. He's like show running.
Yeah, it's definitely his first time show running, as far as I can tell.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, at least the biggest one he's done for sure.
I was really excited by his story and happy to tell you about the creepypasta thing. I thought that you'd get a kick out of that.
That and I did. I love epistolary stuff. Like the idea of a form breaking thing is fun, and it is cool to think of him jumping into the industry with this. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So if you're ready, I think it's time that we jump into spoilers here. Okay. We'll start with episode 1 and go through all 4. So official warning, spoilers are coming.
Yeah.
Starting with episode 1, A Searing Burst of Light. Alina Starkov, a map maker, reunites with her childhood friend Mal while serving in the First Army. When Mal is chosen to be part of a team to cross the Shadowfold, Alina sabotages existing maps so that she can go with him. A crew enters the fold, overlooked by the arrival of General Kerrigan. They are attacked by ravenous creatures called Volcra, who kill most of the crew. Alexei, a fellow cartographer, escapes from the skiff and runs towards the other side of the fold. When Alina is taken by a Volcra, she uses an ancient ability called Sun Summoning to scare the Volcra. Meanwhile, in the trade hub city of Ketterdam, members of the Dregs gang, Kaz, Inej, and Jesper, compete with crime boss Pekka Rollins for a job with a payout of 1 million Kruger. They bring a Heartrender to Dreesen, the man who set the job, in order to win him over. Dreesen has the Heartrender use her powers on a kidnapped Alexei, who reveals that Alina is a Sun Summoner. Dreesen kills Alexei and tells the trio to bring him Alina in exchange for the job.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just react to random things here. One thing that I noted when we first got introduced to Freddy Carter, is the name of the actor who plays Kaz Brecker. I thought he was a spitting image of Bill Skarsgård.
He did look a lot like
him. Did you get anything of that? Like,
yeah.
Like put some clown makeup on him and he's Pennywise.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's not, but man, I was like, he could be another Skarsgård brother.
Yeah, right. He struck me right away as someone, just the look of him and the way that they had him set up in this bar. I didn't trust him right away, and that was the intention, I assume.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, he doesn't seem very trustworthy. And like the things that were happening in the bar, I was like, is this guy going to be some sort of antagonist? He's not. He's sort of like a rogue. He's sort of like
he's definitely a rogue.
Anti-hero, maybe even.
Yeah, I think he is. He's definitely a mysterious character, though. Like I still don't quite understand what's going on with him. Like we don't know much about his backstory. Like what exactly he's good at, other than like he's kind of a mastermind. Like he's good at like orchestrating things. It seems like he's kind of devious. He seems resourceful, obviously like cunning, but he does seem to have like some goodness in him. It seems like he's really been helping Inej out, from what I understand, paying off her debt.
It seems like he's at least has honor among the people that he cares about.
Right.
Like it's like he's willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead and bring the people that he cares about with them, and maybe screw over anybody else along the way.
Yeah.
Which honestly makes for a really fun and interesting character. So what do we think about just the overall camp vibe with the First Army, and then getting onto the skiff? And
I do like that there was a choice made to have her burn the maps to manipulate things so that she could get on the skiff. When she does that, she ends up getting her whole group assigned, which ends up getting people killed. Which I assume she's supposed to have felt guilt about, but I would have liked to maybe see a little bit more guilt about that. But the reason I like that is we talked about in the book that we felt like she was a bit too passive throughout the book, kind of just getting dragged along. This was her making a choice. I'm going to sabotage these maps because I'll be able to manipulate things to get myself on the skiff to be there. And I like that. I like that she's taking initiative. And so it sets her up in a stronger position, I think, going into that. And then, the whole trip across was harrowing. I like the look of the Shadowfold. I liked seeing the remnants of things out in the darkness. I think the Volcra looked good. And
I love the tension of that scene too, where they have all the blue lights out, and then those all go out, and this other guy turns on a normal lantern, and that just and then just all hell breaks loose, and everybody starts dying everywhere.
I mean, it's people are getting killed left and right. It is pretty brutal. And then she does the glow thing, and I like everything about it except for any time they show her face.
It looks pretty wonky.
Getting washed out. It just doesn't look good to me. It looks great when they show her hands. It looks great when we see it pulled back and we see beams. But when her face is turning all white and all you can see is her eyes, something about it looks wonky to me. It just looks weird.
I'm willing to forgive it. It's a tough thing to achieve for sure. And I know they want to show the emotion and the surprise in her face as she's doing it, but I agree. It definitely caught me off guard. I didn't expect it to look quite like that.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. It doesn't.
Everything else about it looks so good though, It really is cool the way they're playing with this light motif with her and everything. The beams, I like the beams, right? It's not just a glow, you're seeing what it was, like a star shooting out all these in multiple rays from the skiff itself, which looked great. That was a really well crafted piece of visual effects.
What did you think of Kaz and his sort of him competing with Pekka Rollins?
Yeah, this was the Peaky Blinders vibes for me. This Pekka Rollins guy. Yeah, it's opposing gangs. It's brutal. They're beating each other up. They're expanding their territory and their influence. And it seems like this Pekka Rollins character has a lot of power, whereas Kaz doesn't, but he's having to compete with him anyway. So that was all cool. I'm feeling it. I'm liking it. And again, everything that's going on over there is, I don't know, maybe it's just because it's a camp and it's a bunch of military people wearing similar outfits and stuff. You have that, and then you compare that to just the colorful costuming and environment on the other side of the fold. It provides a nice contrast, honestly, between the two of them.
Yeah, and I liked seeing the heart render because, I think I was excited to see more powers within this world, because I think we saw in the book, a decent amount for sure, but getting to see the heart render in action and sort of I think I was able to understand a lot more of what a heart render could do.
Yeah, we see, I think, some more things that heart renders can do, calming people's hearts, do different things. We see one later who makes a person almost feel affection for them by increasing their heart rate, it seems or something. So there's lots of things that can be done by manipulating heart rates.
Yeah. So a comparison that I wanted to make that just I have to say, because it makes me think about it a lot. When I was reading the book, I felt the same, but Avatar: The Last Airbender, just bending elements and all of these characters being in different, this person can do fire, this person can do air. It brought that to mind. And with the heart render, it's it definitely creates a difference. It's
a different thing.
Yeah, because at first I kind of felt like it was maybe blood bending, you can freeze people in place with doing something with their blood, but it's not the case. It's just a comparison point that I was
also getting Full Metal Alchemist vibes with specifically the snapping. Colonel Mustang.
Yeah, Roy Mustang.
Yeah, getting the flames out of the snapping. That felt very Full Metal Alchemist to me.
That's true, yeah.
I mean,
I thought you were going to tell me I missed some transmutation circles or something somewhere in here.
No, not in that regard. But, uniformed officers shooting flames.
Yeah.
I was kind of getting those
dogs
vibes.
of the military.
But I will say, we haven't seen a pyro, what are they called? The whichever.
Inferni,
yeah. We haven't seen one who's or like a Colonel Mustang style Inferni, because that power could be gnarly.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw one in the background that was like lighting a scarecrow on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Everything like, we've seen has been like a little puff of fire, like just like a little, like that's it.
part of me, and of course they're gonna lean into crazy powers as time goes on. With I'm sure there's gonna be other seasons of the show and other stuff, but
yeah,
I think they kind of want her power to seem like ridiculously powerful to everybody else's right now.
I agree, and also there's been a point made about how the Grisha in general, their power as compared to the dawning industrial revolution and these new weapons and the machine gun and stuff like that that's happening right now, they're starting to become less and less powerful by comparison.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if you're making a fantasy story and you got powers, like you gotta sell those powers being fucking cool. In my opinion, like why else have them? So I would want to see an exemplar from each category of magic who's really fucking good at it at some point in the story.
We probably will, honestly. I'm sure that we
do.
will. If you're ready, I think we can move into episode 2.
Yeah, let's get into episode 2.
So episode 2 is called We're All Someone's Monster. In East Ravka, Alina is taken to General Kirigan, who proves she is the Sun Summoner when she leaks light after he cuts her. She is taken away to the Ravkan capital, Os Alta, where she will be given to the king and queen. Her convoy is attacked by Fjordan Druskal, warriors who hunt down and exterminate Grisha. Most of her Grisha guard is killed, but she is rescued when Kirigan arrives and uses his shadows in a cut that dismembers her captor. They make it to Os Alta on horseback, and Alina is put into captivity, though she promises to find and reunite with Mal after he was left behind with the First Army. In Ketterdam, Kaz is threatened by Pekka Rollins to drop the job, but he refuses. Inej meets with Tante Helene, the owner of a brothel where Inej had been forced to work before Kaz paid her off. Helene promises to drop Kaz's outstanding debts on her if she will kill a human trafficker named Arkin. Kaz searches for someone known as the Conductor who can safely lead them through the fold, and discovers it is Arkin, who Inej grudgingly lets live. Kaz, Jesper, and Inej set off to find Alina.
This was the episode where in my notes I was like, man, I'm loving everything going on with Kaz right now. and
yeah,
I was like, these costumes look great. These characters are really interesting. The more I get from them, the more I want from them. So this stuff is all great.
This is where we learn that Inej, there's a debt to be paid for Inej, and he wants to free her, and like that. Like I said, that backstory and the motivation behind all of that is really, I think, compelling.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of Jesper being awesome.
Yeah. And also just kind of out of control. Like I like that he's a wild cannon. Wild card. Yeah. It feels like a familiar character archetype, yet it's got this twist on it that makes it feel fresh. And I'm enjoying that performance.
What do we think about the Fjordan Druskal attack?
Well, that was one of my other notes. I thought that was really well done. I thought it was a more intense scene than I remember it being in the book. I know we got the same thing, the same ultimate cut in half moment happens in both, but leading up to that, there was a lot of cool combat out in the woods, like people getting hit with arrows. We're seeing little puffs of flame from some of our fire.
I like seeing that the coats are bulletproof. Like seeing that in action, like they're holding it up to try to block their friend who's down, and seeing them in combat is pretty cool.
Although I will say, man, Grisha dropping left and right, like they are very vulnerable even with those coats. It looks good, and I thought it was an intense battle, and then the moment where he launches this, like, I don't know, it looks like something out of a video game, but in a good way, and it chops the guy in half. It's like an arc of darkness that he just fires out. And then we see entrails and stuff left on the grass after they walk away, so it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty cool. I think it lived up to what I wanted it to do. It's funny, when I imagined in the book, I imagined like he was cut in half.
Oh, vertically.
Mm-hmm. But nope, that's not the case here.
I mean, if I had to pick a way, I think I'd go horizontal personally, because you might survive.
You would rather be cut horizontally?
You might survive it. You go vertical, you're done. Although I guess it's fast, at least.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess it depends on what you're hoping for here.
Where's your midpoint?
If I survive it, I'll go horizontal. Yeah. So we get the scene with them jumping off the horse, and she's all exhausted from riding, and just a lot of the scenes straight out of the book with Kieran, who again, like those scenes between them, I don't feel the, like, I remember I was watching with my girlfriend and she was like, they're supposed to get together, like this is supposed to be a thing.
Yeah.
And it just didn't start to really pick up until like it got really intense really quickly near some of the later episodes.
Yeah, and this was the moment in the books where I felt like that romance was starting to grow, was in this early scene. But that wasn't really the case here, right? Like I don't know, it just, I wonder, okay, so I just looked it up, and I wonder if this is part of it. Ben Barnes is 39.
He does look like, that's another thing. Like, I know he's supposed to be older, like older than we think.
Yeah.
But also he's supposed to look relatively close to her age. He seems really old for her.
Yeah, he's 39. She's 25, the actress. Now, the actress, I think, is playing younger in this role. But that's still a 14-year difference here, and I think you can kind of feel that age gap a little bit on
especially
on
when you compare him to Mal.
Yeah,
you know, like,
who feels a lot more age appropriate to her. Yeah, because in the book he's supposed to be kind of like this ageless vampire type character. He's not a vampire, but he's in the sense that he's ageless, and she knows that he's like 100 years old, like, because that's like common knowledge that he's like got this extended life, but he appears to be her age. I think it's
she
key.
says that.
Yeah,
she literally says, like, you look like you couldn't be much older than me.
Right. And Ben Barnes, like, I'm not, I mean, the guy looks amazing. He looks way younger than that. Like, he looks younger than I am. And, you know, yet he's older than me. But in real life, he is 39. So I don't know. You know, I think there is something to be said for that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about time we move into episode 3, if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, episode 3, The Making at the Heart of the World. Jenya, a tailor, arrives in Alina's chambers to make her presentable for the king. Alina then meets General Kieran, who brings her before the king and a large crowd of people. Together, they demonstrate Alina's powers. The Grisha believe that Alina is their savior and that she will destroy the fold. Alina meets with the apparat, who explains the power of amplifiers to her. If a Grisha slaughters a mythical animal and they meld part of the animal into their body, they can harness that animal's power. Alina then meets Bagra, a teacher who's meant to help her draw out and control her powers. She learns from Bagra that Kieran is a human amplifier, which means he can make other Grisha more powerful. The crows are preparing for their journey across the fold. The conductor's contact to get them inside the palace, Nina, has been captured by the Druskill. The conductor says he needs 20 pounds of coal, a peck of Majdaloon Jurda, and a goat. The group assembles later that night and boards the train. Jesper only manages to steal 16 pounds of coal, which might not be enough to cross, but there is an angry mob after him, so they jet off anyway. The conductor has neglected to mention the tracks aren't complete, which means they can't shift their weight. The Volcra attack, but they manage to escape and make it across the fold. The conductor's contact, Nina, is taken aboard a ship bound for Fjorda, where she will stand trial. She has a short conversation with a soldier who seems drawn to her while being repulsed by her powers as a witch.
Which is another plotline I did not expect to get. I wonder if this is from one of the books. Because this Nina character kind of comes out of nowhere, and we're following her a lot more than I thought. I thought she was going to be integrated into the plot, and instead she's just like, nope, she's on a ship and she's going away somewhere.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. I'm interested in her.
I liked her character a lot right away.
Especially if she gets out of her current predicament, which she's in for a while here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with that character yet, so I'm withholding judgment. So far, I would say my interest level is medium. But I'm hoping they're going to do something with it. But everything they called that description called them the crows. I'm not sure. Did they say that in the show?
I don't know that they did. They kept calling them the dregs or something, right?
I don't know. Maybe I missed it, but that makes sense.
This person may have had some insider knowledge.
Yeah, that sounds like book knowledge. I like it though, because that crew is really cool. And the conductor, you know, I thought he was going to be a more throwaway character than he ends up being. He actually ends up being really
potentially
interesting.
one of the people, one of the dregs now.
I think he's one of the crew. Yeah. And
yeah.
he's interesting, right? Like he's kind of devious, but he's like, he's not the kind of character who's usually a important person in a fantasy story. Like, I don't know. He doesn't have that vibe. So I like that. And then so much of what happened with the like train ride across the fold was really fun.
And Jesper's fault, which I thought was hilarious.
And I think this is the tone that I'm liking in the show, when it's like having fun with it, leaning into some of the like over the top, like, you know, the train is jumping tracks essentially, and he's shooting at, you know, the Volcra with his like, And then everything with the goat. The goat was so funny.
Yeah, I literally said out loud, I was like, "Oh, he's about to go God mode." When he like stood up with the goat in his arm, I was like, "He's going God mode." I just love it how
they're like, "Get the goat," and he's like, "I'm not gonna sacrifice the goat," and he's like, "It's not for sacrifice. Like, just hold it. It'll calm you down."
It's a great joke. I wonder if that's from the book too. Like, that's just a solid joke. Really funny.
So good, because you assume it's like to sacrifice to a Volcra or something, but instead, no, and it ends up being like the thing. Like Jesper seems to kind of bond with this goat.
God mode.
So good. Yeah, very funny.
Goat mode.
And yeah, I like that he is able. I mean, we knew he was gonna make it, but I like that it was skin of their teeth. Jesper had to show up to make it work. Very fun.
Let's jump back to the beginning of the episode. We get the stuff with Genya, the tailor, who's like,
I felt like it was actually handled pretty well. I was a little bit worried. I was like, how far are they going to go with it, right? Like, are they going to start? Because Jessie Mei Li, I don't know if it's like, it seems like she actually has like a little scar between her eyebrows. And I was like, are they going to get rid of that? Like, how much are we going to do here? And I was glad they didn't do that. Instead, it was just like cleaned her up, made her hair look nice. And that was mostly it. Maybe kind of made it look like she had makeup on, but it's unclear whether or not that was magical or they just applied some makeup to her.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was handled pretty well. But the thing that kind of sours it is this whole racist thing where like all the servants are like making comments about her eyes and stuff, and it's microaggressions, right? Like she's getting all these microaggressions, and I could just see this being really triggering for people, and yeah, it's unfortunate.
Did you feel like Genya was in her corner? Did you feel like she did the right thing, or did you feel like she didn't go far enough to help? Like it just doesn't. It feels like they were making comments. Yeah, it's like, is that even enough though?
I think like, there was like there was kind of a bond between the two of them in the book, right?
I do like their relationship,
and I feel like I don't quite get that bond yet, at least in the show, but maybe we're gonna build to it. But so far, I'm not sure these two characters are friends in that same way that honestly it felt like Genya was her main friend in the palace, at least by as things progress. So we'll see if they get there.
Yeah. So we get
we get the introduction of the royal family, when she's brought in front, and then more microaggressions going on, and then this question of what are you gets said again, which is that's like a racist thing that people say, which is really shitty in real life, and so we're gonna put it in our fantasy show. It's tough, and but the court scene I thought looked good. We get the orb of light, we get the darkness. I think mostly all these effects look great. The apparat I found to be a little bit underwhelming as far as like his appearance. I was expecting big and bearded, but maybe they're trying to go away a little bit from the Rasputin. But he is kind of creepy. And when they have that interaction in the library, he like, I liked it when they opened the book and we saw all these like really cool artwork of the past. It was a good way to give us some exposition on the world.
I like that lore,
but it worked, right? And I thought the finger bones thing, like this character that, what was it, the bone? It was like
he used his own bones and his fingers.
He used his own bones. It was cool. I forget the name of the character now. I didn't write it down. It was like the Bonesmith or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was very cool. I'm like, oh, I want to know about this character. And I don't remember that from the book, at least. I might have missed it. I don't know. I didn't think it was in there though. Like that seems like a detail I'd remember, and it was very cool.
Yeah. What about Baghra? How do you like Baghra in the series so far?
So I mean, she's basically right out of the book, but seeing it on screen, I honestly kind of feel like I was hoping they would reimagine the character a little bit, because there is a kind of tropey thing going on here that is kind of frustrating. And it's this idea that you have to like basically abuse someone to get the best out of them. Best out of them. Exactly. To get strength out of them. And this appears in a lot of fantasy. In a lot of stories, honestly. And I don't know, man. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like she's just constantly hitting her, and I don't know if we're supposed to like think that's good in some way or necessary. It's necessary. I don't know that it is.
Yeah, the alternative is also interesting to me. Is the thing I think a lot of people don't think about. Like just having a really generous teacher who's great at teaching.
Yeah.
Could also be just as engaging as someone getting whacked until they do the right thing.
It's probably like harder to write, I don't know. But yeah, it just something about, because it's in the book, but like you take it and you put it on screen, and honestly you do it in a way that's basically the exact same as it was in the book. I don't know. I was kind of hoping for a little more. Also, she like seems to live like in like a woods hut, which I think is right out of the book, but it I don't know. It kind of feels kind of hokey to me. She's like this woods witch that she goes to. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like, it seems like it's right off campus. It's weird. Like she just have a little hut out in the woods in the garden or something.
Yeah, it's the Hagrid character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. Hagrid if he whipped them.
If he whipped him, yeah. Hey, some would say Hagrid's irresponsible with those magical creatures sometimes, but story for another day.
Yeah.
All right, episode 4, Otkazatsya. Hopefully I said that correctly.
Good job. I don't know if he did, but good job.
Alina goes riding with General Kirigan. They ride to an old fountain that he says he visited constantly as a child, once he discovered he was a descendant of the most hated Grisha to ever live, the Black Heretic. Alina remembers the story of the Black Heretic. Alina tells Kirigan that she worries if she fails, she'll become the new heretic. Kirigan tells her to believe he will not let that happen. Later, back at the palace, Baghra gives Alina a tea that unlocks some of her memories about her power. In a flashback, Alina was tested as a Grisha, but she hid those powers so that she could stay with Mal. She tells Baghra all of this. That night, she wanders the palace and goes to see Kirigan. They talk about the war and almost share a kiss. The next day, Alina asks if there are any letters for her and is disappointed to not see anything from Mal. Mentally, Alina leaves Mal behind and goes to Baghra, where she shows her powers are more focused. Mal is on a mission to get an invitation to the little palace so that he can be reunited with Alina. He decides to search for a mythical stag, which is said to be a powerful amplifier for Grisha. He and his friends track the stag to Fjorda's territory, where they're ambushed, and Mal gets shot. The Fjordans kill both of his friends as Mal is knocked down, and when he looks up, he sees the stag. Kaz and his crew have a new mission, to break into the palace archives to steal the maps of the palace. Inej sneaks into the archive through a dome, while Jesper disguises himself as a palace servant so that he can turn off the lights at the dome. Kaz pretends to be a sculptor who needs the dimensions of the entrance to ensure his creation fits. He attaches something to the archive receptionist's foot that leaves a trail for Inej to follow. She then makes a copy of the blueprints, but the plan gets interrupted when the guards almost find her. Jesper shoots the lock on the door to get them out. Later, they decide to pose as performers with a troupe that's been invited to perform at the Winter Feet in order to get into the palace. Meanwhile, on the boat, Matthias offers Nina food in exchange for answers, but they end up asking each other questions and answering nothing. Matthias asks her to tell him about the man she serves, Kirigan. She refuses, but he gives her the food anyway. Later, the ship sails into a storm, and the captain orders Matthias to kill all of the prisoners, but he looks at Nina and considers sparing her.
I thought this was a good episode overall. This reminds me of one thing I wanted to touch on from the last episode, so before we get into it. The last episode ends with her writing a letter to Mal. And during the letter reading, as we're experiencing it, we're seeing a lot of flashbacks to like scenes we've already witnessed. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like that was a little redundant. I kind of wanted to see something different there, or something that explored stuff we had seen in a different way. Instead, it felt like
not a huge fan of the highlights.
It felt like highlighting, in a way that felt almost like padding. I know what they're trying to do is like build up this relationship, right? Because that's very important, obviously, going forward. But it just, I didn't like that particular approach. So I felt like the last episode ended on kind of a sour note, even though as much as I liked that episode with everything else we talked about.
Yeah, I agree. It absolutely does feel that way. And I remember feeling similarly.
We're going to revisit the letters because in this episode, we got Mal writing a letter to her. And we know that they're not getting to each other, and it creates this nice tension. But yeah, that one didn't work as well. But that's why I brought it up, because here we get that, and we get Mal going off to the north to go after this stag. And I was really glad this made it into the adaptation, because we hear about this later in the book after it's already taken place, and it sounds harrowing. But we don't see it as scenes, at least not in the book we read. And I was really glad to get that. We see the character growth. We see him go through a really brutal fight. And he loses two of his best friends in a brutal way. And I don't know. I thought like when he wakes up, kills the guy and shoots the other guy, like I felt like that was badass. Like I don't know. This is, I think, my favorite Mal episode as far as the stuff he does. He's really fighting to live and then also fighting for Alina in a way. And it's perfectly set up because it's at the same time Alina is, starting to like read into past interactions and start to think that there's actually some problem between the two of them and starting to distance herself from him, which creates this really nice tension between him, like really demonstrating how, legit he is. and at the same time, she's starting to doubt. So I don't know. I thought that stuff was all really good.
So I mentioned the performance early in the early episodes. This is where I agree. He starts to really like embody Mal. And I also think I much prefer this Mal to book Mal, because there's something way more cocky and like not like detached with Mal early on in the book, where he's like, he doesn't even like really see her as a person or anyone that he'd be interested in having a romantic relationship with. And that's not the case for this one really as much.
No,
I guess it could be.
Yeah, no, you're right, because we see that flashback where he finds out she's been locked up, and so he goes and like breaks a bottle over the head of this person.
Oh yeah, I love that flashback.
And like
great flashback.
Gets himself sent. So we can tell that like he has always had feelings for her too. They both have had feelings for each other, but neither of them have been able to like express it, or and that does feel kind of different in the book, where maybe he did always have that, but at least from the perspective we got, which was Alina's, it seemed like he was more clueless to that.
And it makes his fight, like the reasons he wants to get to see her, because in the book he almost like sort of like hunts the stag independent of the fact that he wants to go to the palace, and then he goes to the palace and happens to see her, and that's when they have that interaction in the book.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So it just feels like he's like very much more motivated to get there, which makes the loss of his friends harsher, because they their relationship, like they were like, we're not gonna let you go alone.
Well, and they really develop those two in a way that they're not. They get like one brief scene in the book, and then we hear later that they died, and the scene they were in, they weren't particularly, I don't know, charismatic or memorable. We're here, it's like they seem like goofballs, but they're pretty likable throughout, and so when they die, it's heavy.
Yeah. So let's jump to the Alina stuff with General Kerrigan and their ride to the fountain. And this is what I was talking about. This is where Alina gives us the history of what everyone's taught in the land about the Black Heretic. The king was worried about a coup. That's sort of why the relationship between the Black Heretic and him went to odds. They were kind of fighting. And then I think the Black Heretic tried to do something similar, like use some sort of amplification of some kind, and then ultimately failed, and that like accidentally created the fold. Right. I think that's the history that they're told.
Yeah.
And I liked getting that lore in that way at the fountain scene.
Yeah, and this is another scene where it seemed like they were trying to start to lay the groundwork for a budding romance between the two of them. Instead, we got, I feel like we still got some of those like mysterious looks. I don't know. There was a moment later around the map where they like almost kiss. But it kind of comes out of nowhere, because I'm like, wait, are they attracted to each other? I don't know if we really sold that yet.
Yeah, I agree. It just feels like it's happening a lot faster, maybe even too. It just
it's
like they maybe share less scenes, or I don't know.
One thing, actually, I think this might have happened in a previous episode, but it made me think of it. There was a moment where she gets this like veil on her face and she's walking around.
Oh God.
And
that was
what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, I couldn't, like, the veil was so distracting for me.
It was very distracting. You couldn't really see her face. Yeah. But one of the things I thought was cool was when we put the veil on the camera for a minute and we walked around this like first person point of view. I like little fun things, like little camera tricks like that. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah. Definitely fun. It just like, I was like, man, everybody else is, and I get that that's sort of what they were going for. The royal family wants to see you as a soldier, and like, but I just was like, look at everybody's interesting outfits that they're wearing, and she's wearing this like military uniform with this like goofy looking veil over her face. I mean, maybe it's not just goofy to me, and I hope that's not offensive to maybe Russian culture that has these kinds of veils or something.
I wouldn't know, but it's possible, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I thought this was all pretty good, but still there's nothing that has really happened between Alina and the Darkling, who, by the way, also says his name is Alexander. It's Alexander Kerrigan, I guess. So we're getting all kinds of names for him now.
He'll always be the Darkling to me.
There's nothing here that is there's nothing here that is quite selling me yet on it. But I am into it enough to like I want to see where it goes and see where this potential budding relationship, how it plays out.
I agree. And yeah, let's talk about Kaz's crew in this heist mission, which they even called like lampshaded. Jesper was like, "We're going a heist. It means we got a heist coming
yeah.
up." And heists are always fun.
And it's like it feels like Ocean's 11 a little bit kind of stuff. Like light, but like that sort of like.
Well, they do it in like a non-linear order.
Yeah.
They're like, this is the plan, but they're doing the actual action as they're reciting the plan. So very Ocean's-y for sure.
It's cool, and we got Kaz playing a character, this fun like sculptor character, and Inej gets this really cool moment where the guard comes in and she like perfectly like stays just behind him while he's looking around. So that was really
Love
cool.
It. I want to get good at that. That's a skill that I want to get good at, is like sneaking behind people and then like perfectly pivoting.
I love how she has like 47 knives. Like I feel like none of this stuff is like particularly, like if you're just hearing this and you didn't watch the show, you're like, why is that? Like I've heard of this kind of thing, like a ninja character with a bunch of knives, but like something about it feels different, something about her performance, like seeing
she's just oozing cool. Like she's cool. A cool character. Like the whole way through. Like you said, the knife scene, you've seen that before, where they pull out like weapons from everywhere and they put it down. But it works so well for this character. Yeah. And then there's one point she pulls one like out of her hair, and then some guard in the background's like that. Like somebody that knew her and had seen her take all her weapons out before was like, that's a new one, and she's like, you have no idea, kind of thing. Like. It's awesome.
Yeah, and she's like running on rooftops and stuff all the time. She is kind of like a Batman character in that way. So that's all very cool. And then we get this troop thing, which gets set up in a funny way where like all of a sudden this like ribbon, I don't know if it's called ribbon dancing or what it's called, but like this ribbon, I'm going to call her ribbon dancer, falls.
It's impressive. Very impressive like feat, the performance feat that everyone's probably seen before.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. And one of them falls and I was like, that's a weird detail. That has to mean something, right? And then we get this flashback where the conductor oiled the ribbon or something. Yeah,
we get a knowing look from the conductor too. He sort of like everyone's looking and he like looks down at his drink. And that's the other thing about the conductor, is that he sort of, you don't know that he's on their side fully yet.
Yeah,
because you're suspicious of everything he's doing still, because he like was in, remember he like met somebody when Kaz was trying to go do something. He was supposed to go grab some resource or whatever, and Kaz saw him speaking to someone else, and you're like, oh shit, does that mean that he's not on Kaz's side? He's gonna double cross them. And in this situation, something happens and he has like a knowing look, and you're like, oh shit, is he like screwing them over again?
And well, we also, one thing I didn't mention before is his backstory is really cool. Like he helps like refugees escape and people like that. Like he this railroad that he runs,
underground railroading.
Maybe he's trying to evoke that a little bit. I don't know. And so in that sense, he is this really interesting character who seems to be out for the altruistic reasons, at least, it seems to me. We don't know much about him, but it doesn't seem like he's motivated by greed in the same way necessarily that some of the other characters are.
Yeah. Plus, he told them to get a goat for comfort reasons.
Comfort goat.
That's pretty endearing right away. Yeah. As soon as you do that as a character.
So then we get the they have to join the troop and show off their talents, which almost feels a little bit hokey, but this is like, I like this pocket. When the show's in this pocket, it's fun. And so we see Inej is able, of course, to do like an incredible routine on this ribbon, and then we get Jesper doing a trick shot, shooting through a mirror. At Inej, which is I wouldn't recommend in real life, but it works here.
Yeah, he like shoots a card between her teeth or something very difficult and dangerous kind of thing. And then Kaz is like, I'll find my own way. He's not going to be a part of the troop.
I was interested in that. Like, what is he going to do? Yeah, are we going to get another disguise? Yeah. I don't know.
I think he's going to do the sculptor thing again.
Yeah, maybe.
He's going to show up and be like, I'm a sculptor. I need to know how to get in. And then the last thing I think we should talk about is just the Nina stuff again on the boat. I hope that this isn't a romantic relationship building, because it feels like it's like the beginnings of a romantic relationship between the guy who's like bringing her bread because he's grappling with his humanity to see if he should follow orders or if he should save her. It feels like it's going to be, and just personally, it's not something I'm interested in seeing, but it could build to something great. I don't know where the story's going. It just didn't. It doesn't feel like the most. It feels like a toxic place for a relationship to start. But
and what's interesting here, right? Like we have this character who is essentially being captured, and they're going to murder her. They're going to put her on trial, but it's supposed to be a fake trial because these Grisha are always killed. And so Grisha are hated for who they are. And so in a sense, we've already introduced a form of magic racism. You know what I mean? So why do we need the anti-Asian racism too? Like it's like you're already exploring this, and they're like, oh no, we're doubling it. We're showing it in different angles. But I don't know, man. Yeah, you have this. Like this is if I'm in fantasy and I see some like actual fantasy racism, not real world racism in our fantasy. I'm not saying that can never happen, but a show that has like this fun heist going on, it just feels out of place, in my opinion. But anyway, I agree. This is like, I don't know where they're going with this, and I'm curious, and it does feel like they're doing that, but maybe it's a misdirect. Maybe they're not actually going that route. I will say that it seems like these two actors have more chemistry with each other than I've necessarily seen elsewhere in the show, but, and props to them for being able to do it in a very short amount of screen time. But I do feel like there's an attraction there. And I kind of hope they're misleading us in some way, but I don't know. I'm curious to see where they go.
We'll see. Yeah. Everybody likes a redemption story too. So maybe he'll like make good and sacrifice himself or something here or there. Who knows?
Savor he regret his ways, and who knows? Yeah. Maybe that's where they're going, or maybe she's going to kill him first chance she gets.
Yeah. It feels like they're going to do the relationship here, but yeah, maybe I'm just cynical about it. But overall, I'm not cynical about the show. So I've really been enjoying myself. I think it's a fun Netflix show. I like the lighter tone for the sort of YA audience that they're trying to hit. Overall, it's good performances, good visuals.
I do think a lot of people are enjoying this. I've been trying not to like look into too many reviews, because there's always this fine line to walk doing a podcast of like, you want to form your own opinions, and you want to come in and like not just be parroting everything you've seen on the internet. But on the other hand, you kind of want to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on a little bit, right? To not be completely out of touch, especially when you're not maybe the target demo. I'm pretty close to. Like, I'm a little bit old for this show, but like I love fantasy, and this is the kind of thing that 15, 20 years ago might have been completely up my alley. I might have been super into. I can definitely see myself really liking a lot of the Crow's characters, right? And like identifying with them and wanting to be like them or dress up like them. Very cool. So in that sense, I still wanted to kind of like keep an eye on it. And from what I've seen, a lot of people are really enjoying the show. So,
good. That's awesome.
And it seems like it's popular on Netflix right now. It seems like I don't know if it's a hit yet. It's hard to know. Like, Netflix doesn't really release numbers in the same way that other platforms do. But
anytime something's number one on Netflix, though, which this show is, when you're on Netflix, it says number one this week or this weekend or whatever. It's a good sign.
Yeah.
So it's number one right now, and I'm sure people are watching the hell out of it.
That's cool, man. And I hope that that's continued success for Eric Heisserer, who apparently is adapting things, which, we need more people doing that, right? Keep our podcast going.
Power to him. Absolutely, yeah.
Very cool. We will be getting to episode 5, 6, 7, 8. If you're wondering why not talk about those, we are saving those for next week. We like to spread it out a little bit and live in this world for a little bit longer. We will be coming back for those, though, next week, and we hope that you join us for that. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know in the form of a rating and review on whatever podcast app you use. It's a great way to get the word out, boost us up the lists, and get us heard about and found by other people. Very helpful.
Yeah, and make sure you follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of those at Ink2Film.
And if you'd like to support the podcast in another way, we have a Patreon. We haven't even put it out yet. We just recorded a tier ranking video, which is our second tier ranking video we've done on Patreon now. And this one is for all of the books, just the books, in seasons 1 and 2 of our podcast. We ranked them in, basically S, A, B, C, D, E, no, F, no E. Anyway, we basically ranked them in order of how much we liked them. It was a challenge, honestly. It was like trying to remember and then like trying to say what's better than what. Really tough, but it ended up being a lot of fun, and that's going to be our bonus content that'll be exclusive to Patreon. It's going to be coming out on there very soon. So for as little as $2, you can get access to all of our bonus content. So check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Ink2Film.
And thank you to Ross Bugden for the use of our intro and outro music.
All right, so that's it for this week, and until next time.
Thanks for listening.